Hello, hi. My name is Srikant. In this series of sessions, we were looking at SAC planning in detail. In my previous sessions, I was going through basic object creation in SAC planning, creating a model, planning model, dimensions, and creating input templates and reports where um, planning actions can be taken place, including data actions and a version copy from one to another, and finally calculating the forecasting values in SAC. In this particular session, we will shift our focus to business process understanding. So I'm going to walk you through a real revenue margin planning use case and understand what is involved in revenue planning. Accordingly, we will prepare the data set, of course, using flat files, and load the data into SAC system that has model and dimensions created already. And then we can create some input templates to adjust uh, forecasting values. And finally, we calculate the revenue and margin using data actions and advanced formula. That's going to be happening in the next few sessions. In this particular session, we'll focus on the business process use case of revenue and margin planning in SAP. Well, let's get right onto it. On the screen, you can see actuals on one side and forecast on the other side, and also final revenue forecast calculations in the bottom. Let's start with actuals. In revenue and margin planning, for an FP&A person, the actual is going to be the starting point to get what happened, what was the revenue in the previous months, and accordingly, the forecasting process can happen and compare the trend and also the variances. So we'll start with actuals, and then your source of data could be most likely ECC or S/4HANA system. That's where your ERP recording the actuals for your company, and most likely the data set is going to be COPA, profitability analysis operating concern tables. So that's when your revenue is recorded at a profit center level. So your business entity, I didn't put here, but common business entity for your revenue forecasting could be a profit center. I'm going to put this one in the front, and then you will have the actual sales or revenue and cost and quantity recorded in the data set. So we get the actuals for each month um, in a combination of profit center, product, and customer. And of course, month is very important as a fiscal year period or posting period. And then this data is loaded into SAC model. Prior to that, the master data is also being loaded for all these dimensions: profit center, product, customer, and that's all the dimensions that we needed. Once the actuals are loaded for the previous months, and that's when we start the forecasting data also made available. In most of the scenarios for revenue planning, we need demand volume or supply volume. So for supply and demand volume, SAP's commonly used applications are APO, traditionally in the on-premise world, and IBP as the latest and cloud successor for APO. So we get the volume from these applications into SAC system. The volumes could be again at the same level of the business entity profit center, but most in many cases, a profit center may not be really something that is mandatory in IBP or any of the demanding forecasting because it's a planned the demand volume is recorded at the planned and customer and product combination. So you can derive the profit center in order to manage the profitability based on the business unit. If you don't have to do the planning by profit center, then you can ignore the profit center completely. And that's about the volume for each forecasting month. So it's going to be, let's say you're in September, end of September, and the actuals are up to 2024 September, and then you start getting the forecast from 2024 October, and then future periods of 2025 and more. And depending on the forecast, future forecast periods, you can extend your data set further. And then um, another important data set is going to be price. Most likely the prices are available in ECC. That's when your central finance team uh, prepares the pricing plans and pricing conditions and make the product pricing available in ECC. So we get the forecasted price for each product and customer combination for the month, each month in the future cycle into SAC system. In this example, in this use case, you can see that I put it as ECC or S/4HANA system, depending on your ERP system. So once you have price and volume, then you can calculate the revenue. So we already have the revenue for history actuals. What we are trying to do is calculating the revenue for future periods based on the future demand volume that salespeople entered, um, sales or supply people enter, and also the price recorded in ERP for the future months with certain pricing conditions and for the customer. So when we multiply the volume and price for each future forecasting period, we get the revenue. It's pretty much a simple calculation. Um, and before we perform that calculation and understand what's going to be the final forecasted values, I also wanted to talk about cost. So we may also need the cost or the total manufacturing cost for that particular product. So this could be recorded in or available in ECC, IBP, or APO. It could be anywhere. So depending on your source for the cost, you will pull the cost or you put the cost loaded into SAC as well. So cost is going to be required in calculating the cost of goods sold for the future periods. So this cost is estimated future forecast cost for each product. So once we have a volume and multiply the volume with the cost, then you can get the cost of goods sold for the future periods. And now you can see a full calculation in this revenue forecast box. This is going to be in SAC. So we have the future months revenue calculated as volume into price, and then cost of goods sold calculated as quantity or volume into cost. And then margin is um, a calculation of revenue uh, minus cost of goods sold divided by revenue, and in percentage is what your margin. So in this case, for this particular month, 29% is the margin profitability as the final value. And you can see in an Excel format how the data is being loaded. You can see the actual gets the data for, this is the data source, by the way, actually, sorry, version. So you get the actuals loaded up to September, and then forecast will be from October onwards. And and then you can see these are all the calculated values. So not these ones, but um, gross revenue, cost, and these are all the forecast actuals. You can say you can just put it in the forecast category for all these. And then you can see the final percentage margin calculated for the future months. Once the forecasting process completed and you get the forecasted revenue and margin finalized, you can conclude the planning cycle as completed and take a snapshot and put it in a different version. So you can say it's October 24 forecast, something like that, and that will be stored, and then you can have it as a reference for the comparison in the upcoming forecast versions. So that's about the complete business process of revenue and margin forecast process. So in the next sessions, we will prepare the data sets. We create a template, input template to adjust the price, because in many scenarios, the price may be okay, but the planner wanted to update, increase or decrease the price depending on the um, forecasting planning scenario. And similarly, volumes can be adjusted and also the cost. So all these three components can be adjusted manually in the as part of the planning process. So for that, we may prepare the input templates and then um, and prepare the data aggregation and disaggregation functionality so that users can go and input or adjust the values there. And also for the calculations, we may create data actions that can result in calculating these values, and then finally show a report, a standard SAC report or kind of a dashboard that will show all these calculated values in a nice user readable format. So that's what we will be doing in the next steps. That's all for today's session. We'll connect again with the implementation of this business scenario in SAC system. Thank you.